everybody, and welcome to Inside the Story. I'm Jackie Ray. Now, what is Inside the Story? Inside the Story is when we take you deeper into a story from the Long Beach Post or the Long Beach Business Journal so you can get a more in-depth look at what's really going on in that story. Now, today, Alena Maschke is joining me, and I'm excited to hear about this story that she covered. This one is about kelp and how it can potentially be used for fuel. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, can you kind of give us an overall view of what the story is really about?
For sure. So the story is basically about a project that USC is doing out on Catalina Island. They have a marine science center there, and they're looking into the option of turning kelp, so a type of seaweed, into fuel that can be put into cars and sent them running on the freeway.
I mean, we definitely need something like that, especially here in California where we always have that light haze. But tell me a little bit more about the scientist and Diane Kim, correct? And how did she start this journey?
Yeah, so Diane Kim, she has a doctorate in biology and she works with USC and she's the lead researcher on this project. I was just initially and immediately fascinated by kind of her, her interest, her knowledge, and just her connection to the ocean and to kelp.
Now, she has a very personal relationship with kelp as well, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's actually twofold. She first started working with or around kelp as an undergraduate student at USC on Catalina Island. So she spent a summer there and she was researching a specific type of bacteria that kind of lives on and around kelp. And so it's really coming full circle for her.
I've experimented with a variety of seaweed species that are not widely consumed as human food, but in Korean culture, we have every year for our birthday, it's tradition to eat seaweed soup. And the type of seaweed in the soup is wakame, another variety. And, it's we do this because, you can go back centuries and people like women who give birth were fed seaweed soup for several days after giving birth to regain their strength and to, just for nutritious reasons. And so now every birthday, it's customary to eat seaweed soup.
She obviously knows about cultivating because it's part of her culture, right? So how are we doing as a country as far as the United States as far as cultivating kelp?
Yeah, so in Asia, there already is some larger scale kelp production for food purposes. The kind of production that would be necessary in order to really use kelp for fuel, that would have to be just enormous and way beyond what we're currently growing for fuel. The U.S. is not doing either at the moment.
Now, are there roadblocks? Are there reasons why we're not cultivating at all?
So there's various reasons. The idea of using kelp for fuel is not new. Actually, the first person to proposed it about 50 years ago. But the U.S. has just recently rediscovered its interest in using kelp for fuel. So what she told me and what I learned as I was kind of reporting this story out is that there are a lot of restrictions on what you can do off the coast of especially California. And as a marine scientist, as someone, who is invested in the health of our oceans, she agrees with a lot of those protections, but they also place some hurdles on cultivation of kelp, for example. So as we kind of look into this as an opportunity for alternative fuel production, there will have to be some work on the regulation in order to really make this feasible.
So what would go into that to making this a reality? How does that technology look?
To back up a little bit, the project that I was writing about in this case and the stage at where it is right now really looked to interrogate whether the kelp from a biological standpoint could handle the kind of up and down movement that would be necessary to grow it in the open ocean at a kind of industrial scale. It would actually be grown on what's kind of like a magic carpet that swims through the ocean. And when I first saw those designs, they just seemed crazy to me. It's this gigantic kind of network that the plants would be placed on. And I'm talking like acres here. And we would have basically drones pulling it through the ocean. And it sounds crazy, right? And I thought it was really interesting because I spoke to Diane about that, and I had told her, I'm like, I couldn't believe that this could ever become a reality, and she kind of felt similar.
Yeah, and then I started thinking about, well, you know, all the network of planes in the sky.
Yeah.
You know, to have been around when the first plane took off. You know, to imagine what we have today must have seemed like science fiction to those individuals. And so the more I thought about it, you know, the more, I mean, we're just talking about that, just underwater.
Yeah.
Not carrying passengers, but kelp.
That just seems so far out. Like, it's almost like sci-fi. It's very fascinating. I was fascinated from the moment you told me you were doing this story. But what is one of the biggest takeaways you found from doing this story?
So I think for me, the biggest takeaway was how much, in general, not just the US, but how much we are underutilizing this gigantic resource we have in the oceans. And I think thinking of a future in which fresh water will likely be very scarce. I mean, you know, people are saying that's what we're going to fight wars over in the future, not oil, fresh water. I think it's really fascinating to think of the opportunities that are out there in the ocean, whether it's for fuel or it is for food. Just really using that gigantic resource we have, but using it in a responsible way that doesn't harm the environment, but possibly can help it and can help us in the process.
Yeah, helping our future is always so important because we definitely want to leave this earth a little bit better than when we found it, I think. So this is great research. So thank you for shedding light on this. This was fantastic. And again, don't forget to come back every week to Inside the Story. We'll be talking about this and other great stories, and hopefully we'll have Alena back on again. But once again, I'm Jackie Ray for Long Beach Post and the Long Beach Business Journal, and we'll see you next time.